Christopher Bell did everything a driver is supposed to do on Sunday night at Nashville Superspeedway. He found speed when it mattered, he made the pass for the lead at the right moment, he started pulling away from the field with the checkered flag coming into view. For several laps, the win looked inevitable, not lucky, not fortunate, but earned. Then, it slipped away in the most painful way this sport knows how to deliver. If you follow Christopher Bell and you watch Nashville, this one is going to stay with you for a while. It was the kind of near miss that doesn't fade quickly, the kind that gets replayed in a driver's head on long drives home and quiet mornings before the next race weekend arrives. The Cracker Barrel 400 at Nashville Superspeedway, a 1.33-mile concrete oval with 300 laps on the schedule and rain that pushed the whole event back by an hour, meaning the finish didn't come until after midnight on the East Coast. The kind of long, grinding night that sorts out who really has the endurance to compete when every advantage they built early gets chipped away by circumstances. Two drivers came into this race still searching for their first Cup Series victory of 2026, Christopher Bell and his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Chase Briscoe. Both fast, both capable, both with a genuine shot at the win if the race broke right for them. Qualifying got washed out by the rain, which meant NASCAR set the grid through the performance metric formula. Denny Hamlin drew the pole, Tyler Reddick lined up second, Bell started from fourth. Hamlin's night started badly before the first lap was even complete. He jumped the green flag, moved before the starter released the field, and NASCAR sent him through pit road immediately to serve a pass-through penalty. He dropped from the front of the field to somewhere in the back and spent the majority of the evening doing exactly what veterans do when they get themselves into a hole. He dug out of it, lap by lap, methodically, without drama. While the rest of the story was playing out around him, Hamlin was quietly working his way back toward the front. By the time the closing stages arrived, he was positioned to matter again, and everyone in the field knew it. With 13 laps remaining, Christopher Bell made the move that should have won him the race. Zane Smith was leading at the time, running a fuel conservation strategy and hoping the math would hold together long enough to reach the checkered flag. Bell had different plans. He went to the outside of Smith, coming through the corner, and drove past him cleanly. Not a desperate lunge, but a controlled, committed pass by a driver who knew exactly where his car was fast and executed accordingly. Once Bell cleared Smith and took the lead, the gap started growing immediately. Chase Briscoe was running second and trying to close, but the number 20 was pulling away with every lap. Bell was not just leading, he was managing the race. He had the fastest car on the track, and he was using it. The win felt like a formality, the kind of moment where the broadcast team starts setting up the victory lane segment, and the fans watching start assuming the outcome. Then, Chris Buescher cut a right front tire and slid into the outside wall in turn 3. The caution came out with approximately 12 laps remaining. Everything Bell had built, every tenth of a second of gap, every bit of clean air, every inch of track position, compressed back to zero in the time it took the yellow flag to wave. Under caution, the entire field bunches together. The leader's advantage evaporates. Every driver who was falling behind gets a free reset and lines up right back on the bumper of the car in front of them. For Bell specifically, that meant Denny Hamlin, who had been fighting through traffic all night, was suddenly right there, third on the restart, lined up on the inside of row 2, with 4 laps to decide the race. That yellow flag was not Bell's fault. He did nothing wrong. He was exactly where a race winner should be, and a caution that had nothing to do with him erased the margin he had earned through 60 laps of competitive racing. 4 laps to go. Bell and Briscoe on the front row, Hamlin directly behind them on the inside of row 2, having spent the entire night proving that his early penalty wasn't going to define his result. Hamlin's restart was immediate and decisive. He got the jump he needed, drove up behind Bell, and attacked the inside line going into turn 1 on the very first lap of the restart. The two of them made contact, door to door, rubbing, neither willing to give an inch, while Briscoe ran directly behind them waiting for his opportunity. The white flag came out, 1 lap remaining. Hamlin on the bottom, Bell on the top, and Briscoe threading up the middle to make it 3 cars wide going for the lead simultaneously. 3 Joe Gibbs Racing teammates, side by side by side. 1 lap to decide who wins and who goes home explaining second place. Bell ran wide through the middle of the corner, just slightly, just enough. That margin was all Hamlin needed. He used a side draft to generate a run on the inside line, cleared Bell, cleared Briscoe, and pulled away in the final half lap.
By the time the checkered flag waved, Hamlin had daylight between himself and his teammates. Denny Hamlin took his second win of the 2026 season. Christopher Bell finished second. Chase Briscoe came home third. Joe Gibbs Racing swept the entire podium at Nashville Superspeedway, a result that any organization would point to as a sign of genuine strength and depth across the program. For the team collectively, it was a remarkable evening. 3 cars in the top 3 at a track that punished multiple drivers throughout the night. The organization won the race and finished at the top of the board. By any organizational measure, that is a success. For Bell and Briscoe individually, the emotion was more complicated. They watched their teammates spray the champagne and take the hat, while they stood a few feet away, having finished second and third in a race where either of them could have won. Briscoe said he hated not being on the better end of a great team result, and that he wished it had been his car in first. He acknowledged that all 3 of them drove into the corners a little too deep on that final lap, and that the aggression cost him and Bell the positioning they needed to hold off Hamlin's run. The way Bell handled the post-race interview said a lot about who he is as a competitor. He did not point at the caution, he did not mention Boucher's tire failure that wiped out his lead, he did not suggest that the restart format or Hamlin's aggression robbed him of anything. He said simply that he was disappointed, that he had no circumstances to blame except himself, that he just didn't win the race, and that was all there was to say about it. He described the final laps from inside the car, how he felt positioned well running the outside line against Hamlin, how Hamlin kept getting more and more aggressive, which squeezed Briscoe's car into the picture, and how he briefly thought Briscoe might actually give him a push to help him hold the lead. That push never came. Briscoe was racing for the win too, and Bell understood that. The accountability in those quotes is genuine. He is not performing humility for a microphone. He is a driver who knows exactly what happened, knows exactly where the race was his to win, and is carrying the weight of not being able to hold it. Here is the detail that makes Nashville cut even deeper for Bell and his fans. This was the 2nd consecutive race where he finished runner-up. The week before at the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, Bell also came home second after a hard battle in the closing laps, also against Denny Hamlin. 2 weeks in a row. 2 races where Bell was in contention for the win at the end. 2 races where Hamlin left with the trophy and Bell left with a second-place result and a long drive to process what happened. Back-to-back runner-up finishes on back-to-back weekends is not a failure. It is evidence of a driver and team operating at a high level consistently. Bell moved up to 7th in the championship standings after Nashville. Briscoe climbed to 14th. The points are moving in the right direction for both of them, but points and wins are different currencies in this sport. Bell knows the difference. The championship standings tell one version of his 2026 season so far. The win column tells a different one. He has been close enough to touch it twice in 7 days and still doesn't have it. Nashville will be sitting in the back of his mind until he finally gets one. That is how this works.